Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We've now got breaking news of an agreement supposedly being reached between Israel and Hamas for a ceasefire. And the question I want to ask is, have we now got peace in the Middle East, or have Hamas just been handed a golden ticket to regroup, rebuild, and commit another October 7th in the not too far distant future? So let's have a look at the details of this supposed agreement that has been reached. So the implementation of the ceasefire deal will be guaranteed by Qatar, Egypt and the US. GB News are saying as part of the detailed negotiations over the second phase of agreement are set to begin by the 16th day of phase 1 and expected to include release of all remaining hostages. Note all of them, not some of them, but all of them, including Israeli male soldiers, permanent ceasefire and complete withdrawal of Israeli soldiers from Gaza. Hamas will release all remaining hostages over a 6-week period, with 3 hostages released every week and the remainder before the end of the period. So we haven't got that many more details than this at this stage. This is breaking news just in. We're also waiting for Israel to officially announce that they have agreed to this deal. We've had several sources supposedly confirm that an agreement has been reached, but we don't know absolutely for certain until Israel chimes in. So we don't know all the details, but let's talk about what we know so far. So there's going to be a return of the hostages, which I'm sure you've got families and friends across Israel they've been absolutely crying out for this for ages. They will be absolutely thrilled and over the moon about this. But on the other hand, what are they doing in return? Well, they've got to hand back a bunch of prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, to Gaza. Now, there's a big difference between prisoners and hostages, and Israel will be handing back a heck of a lot more prisoners than they'll be receiving hostages in return. These prisoners, a lot of them, they are terrorists. They are dangerous, dodgy people being released back into the wild in Gaza. That sounds like bad news to me. Now, Israel's plan was, of course, to stick with fighting Hamas until Hamas is completely and utterly destroyed. Now, they've made a heck of a lot of progress on that, and it's very clear that Israel are the ones who are winning this war. But if they pull out now, and they still leave some of Hamas remaining, how long will it be before they regroup, before they recruit new members, and they rebuild their forces? And then they commit more attacks again, and we go all the way back to square one. I don't know. I think what we need to see, ladies and gents, is what is the plan? I would like to think that Israel will have thought of what the plan is going forward for the governance of Gaza before agreeing to a deal like this. Is there some kind of plan in place for the governance of Gaza that in this deal that ensures that it's not going to be run by terrorists, and there'll be proper governance in place, and Hamas are not able to regroup? You've got to remember, ladies and gents, that even if all the people at the top of Hamas are gone, that they have a very indoctrinated population. A lot of people don't like me saying that. They say, how dare you say that about the kind people of Gaza? But the reality is, they get people to submit to their regime by indoctrination. It's the same tactic that all of the extreme dictators in this world use. ISIS did the exact same thing. Indoctrination of kids from the moment they can speak, basically. Okay, we've seen videos of kids in Gaza telling us that they get told to basically chant, "We hate the Jews, we hate the Jews," in school. They are a very, very indoctrinated population. However, it might be the case that after what has happened, I've seen videos of kids, screaming, to people who are filming them, saying, "We hate Hamas, we hate Hamas. They shoot us if we try to leave. Israelis are the ones that bring us food and water. We prefer the Israelis." It might be after what has happened with the war that the Palestinians have seen the light, and they're not going to submit to another Hamas regime. But we've got to see a plan in place to stop Hamas from regaining power before I'm going to be completely on board with this ceasefire deal. I hope it is the case that this brings peace to the Middle East, but I think we've got to be skeptical and see really everything that's going on before we celebrate too soon, because a lot of people are on Twitter saying, woohoo, ceasefire, peace forever. Now, careful, ladies and gents. Let's have a look at some views that we've seen on Twitter. So Julia Hartley Brewer does not seem very happy. She calls this a terrible deal for Israel. She says, if it was my family being held hostage in Gaza by Hamas terrorists, I'd pay any price to get them back. But from what we know so far, this ceasefire deal is terrible for Israel. Hamas will build back and are probably already planning another October 7th. This isn't over. Okay, you've got to remember, what is Hamas's mission? Hamas's mission is the destruction of Israel. It is not living in peace and coexistence with Israel. It is the destruction of Israel. Their whole ideology crumbles without that mission. That's what keeps them in power. You know, people submit to a horrible regime on the basis that there's going to be this golden prize at the end, the destruction of Israel. What are they going to do without that as part of their ideology? So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's have a look at what Neoberg, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her first name right, but she says, here is the reality. The current ceasefire deal as it stands will allow Hamas to survive, regroup, rebuild, and rule Gaza once again. This is what Israel and Bibi Netanyahu are about to accept. I'm as baffled as you are. She also said, which I thought was quite funny, if the ceasefire deal goes through, I want everyone who marched for the destruction of Israel for the past year and a half to move to Gaza. Let them live there and help rebuild it. They made Gaza into their entire identity, so why shouldn't they live out their dreams? Very good point. It'd be interesting to see how many of the woke lefty students that have been out screaming on the streets every Saturday are desperate to go over there and get stuck in themselves and help them rebuild if there's a ceasefire. I think I have a good idea as to how many it's going to be. Close to zero. I think it's important to ask what is the influence of Trump versus Biden in this situation. So if this deal goes through before Trump is inaugurated, Biden is going to be taking all of the praise. But I say, regardless of whether it is passed before or after the inauguration, I think that Trump's influence, Trump winning the presidency, is what has pushed them partly towards coming to a deal. Hamas did not talk about having an agreement until Trump won the presidency. When he won his election, all of a sudden Hamas came out and said, oh yep, we're ready to negotiate, ready to lay our arms down. They knew under Biden that they can get away with whatever they want. But with Trump, they're scared of him. They know that they do not stand a chance against Trump and they're better off cutting their losses now. Okay? Trump said the other day, he said, if there is one single hostage left when I get into power, there is going to be hell. That's what he said. There is going to be hell. So he sent them a pretty strong warning that you guys better sort yourself out and agree to give those hostages back before I get into power. He doesn't explicitly say there needs to be a ceasefire, but he was very clear the hostages must be returned back. So I think that Trump is partly responsible for this. Now, do I say that's a bad thing? No, I think it's good that Trump, when I've been, now that some of you may have seen the trailer for a documentary I'm in, I can now reveal I have been out to the Middle East, and whilst I was not in Israel and Palestine, when I was talking to the people in the Middle East who are kind of closer to what's going on here, they all say, yeah, of course Hamas did what they did because of Biden being in power. They look at Biden and think, what a clown, what a softie, we can get away with whatever we want, we can get away with murder, quite literally, whilst Biden's in power. With Trump in, they're scared. Look at Iran. When Trump was in power, he said to China, if you sell a single barrel of oil to Iran, I will not trade with you. You guys are done and dusted. and they didn't have the money to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, etc. When Trump gets back in power, he's going to have none of that. Biden allowed them to sell all the oil they wanted, pretty much. Allowed them to get the money to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, etc. But anyway, let's take a look at some of your comments, see what you guys think of this deal. Michael says, controversially, even if there's a ceasefire, those uneducated backwards lot in Gaza will break it. Now, I wouldn't refer to them as uneducated backwards lot, but as I have pointed out, they have been heavily indoctrinated. Let's not forget these people voted for Hamas. Israel gave them democracy, and they voted in 2006 for Hamas, who then took away that democracy and turned it into a very, very scary regime. They voted for those lot. Okay? Just shows how easily indoctrinated they are. Human beings generally are very easily indoctrinated. Mr. Joshua says, don't negotiate with terrorist Hamas. You've got to always remember, when it comes to negotiating, you are dealing with terrorists here. Also bear in mind, when we had hostage deals agreed in the past, we had an issue with them not giving as many hostages as they had originally agreed to. These are not easy guys to deal with. As Biden is leaving office and Trump is coming in, surely just a massive coincidence. Yeah, exactly. See what else we have got. Michael doesn't sound very hopeful. Gazans are brainwashed. Nothing will last. As I said, the brainwashing is a really big problem. The reason why they indoctrinate all the little kids, and ISIS do the same. I saw it in Syria, as you now may have seen. I was over in Syria. ISIS did exactly the same. They make sure that the mothers at home, they indoctrinate the kids from a very, very young age. And the kids at school, they are indoctrinated to absolutely despise Israel, despise the West, despise non-believers from a very young age. And then it's imprinted in their brain. You've got to remember, when you learn things, when your brain is young and your brain is growing, it's like imprinted on your brain then for life. It's very, very hard. Okay? You have kids who are in rehabilitation camps who are from ISIS families. I've spoken to them. And some of these kids will never be normal. They will never manage to unindoctrinate them, is that a word? Because it's just completely imprinted on their brain. That is going to be a problem in Gaza. That's why it's so hard to completely eliminate these terrorist ideologies. You've got to constantly be on them. You can't just, when they got rid of ISIS, you couldn't just go, right, ISIS is done, finished, we can forget about them now. No, you've got to constantly keep their power down. You can't ever forget about it. That's the reality. I don't think that the problem of Hamas will ever completely go away. We just have to keep on checking their power. Sean says, after any peace deal, Hamas will regroup, rearm, and retrain. D. Gardner says, unfortunately, this is just an unrealistic dream. So, yeah, sounds like you guys in the comments are not too hopeful about this deal. Maybe Hamas was scared because Trump said he'll wipe Gaza off the face of the earth. Just no joke. Yeah, I think they are starting to negotiate now because they are scared of Trump. Kevin says, have they returned all the sausages? They have not yet, but they will over a 6-week period be returning all of the sausages, apparently, from what we've heard about the details. Anyway, that's what we've got so far, ladies and gentlemen. This is breaking news. We don't know all the details yet, but that's what we've got so far. Don't forget, we've got the Reason podcast. It's Wednesday. We're back with that 8 p.m. tonight. Don't miss out. If we've got any more new details about this, I'm sure we'll talk about those there, as well as lots of other exciting stories, so don't miss out on that. See you all soon.
Still watching? Well, I've got a quick ask for you. Recent UK, we're fighting the woke brigade and inspiring young Brits, but we need your help to go bigger. We're hosting a fundraiser and would love you to sign up and share the link on the big day. It's easy, it makes a massive impact, and there are prizes for top fundraisers. Click the Google form in the description to join us. Cheers very much. Let's keep going together.